What's going on, Shield Brothers and Shield Maidens? This is True for Shield Rest, and today I want to talk about how you build encounters in Daggerheart using the official rules. So let's get into it. Alright, so the main reason why I want to talk about this today is that this is one of the chief changes that came with the official rules for Daggerheart. They have completely overhauled how you work encounters, how you build these encounters, okay? So it's no longer going to be a certain number of PCs equals a certain number of adversaries depending on whether you want to go easy, standard, challenging, or climactic. Getting away from that entirely. What they've gone to is a bit of an equation, so let's start with that. So when I say a bit of an equation, it's really simplistic. It's not that big of a deal. Basically, it's going to be 3 times the number of PCs, and then you're going to add 2 points onto whatever that is. And so you're basically trying to get this battle point situation. It's almost going to be like army building within like Star Wars Legion or Warhammer 40k, you know? You're trying to get your battle points together so that way you can choose what adversaries you want to build this list with, okay? So it's pretty straightforward, but there's some adding and subtracting that we can do to these overall points. So let's say, for instance, let's first start off with a target number just so we can move forward from here. So let's say that we have 4 PCs. You know, 4 players, really straightforward, standard group, right? So that's going to give us 12 because it's going to be 3 times the number of PCs. So 4 times 3 being 12, right? And then we're going to add 2 onto that because it's just going to be plus 2 if insert reasons here. And so that's going to be a total of 14 battle points that we have to mess with to build our adversary list. However, there are some options, some that we can add points onto so that way we can buy more, and some that we can subtract from so that way we're kind of making it circumstantially like maybe weaker to some degree, or maybe we're bringing in a couple of solos. You'll see here in a second. So looking at what our add options are for adding points into our total so that way we can hopefully buy more adversaries and make this a little bit beefier, right? The way you can do this is by adding 1 point for choosing an adversary from a lower tier, adding 1 point if you don't include bruisers, hordes, leaders, or solos into the battle list, and then you can add 2 points if the encounter should be more dangerous or last a little bit longer. Now looking at subtracting points from your list, this could be basically subtracting 1 point for if the fight should be a little bit less difficult or a little bit shorter for whatever reason. Whether you're trying to basically make this like an easy encounter like the old system, right? You can subtract 2 points if you're using 2 or more solo adversaries. So if you're going to include more than 1 solo in the battle list, you just subtract 2 points from that. Mainly because they don't want you to have so many points to work with that you're bringing in more than the 2 solos pretty much. It gets a little too dangerous at that point when you're bringing in more than those 2 solos. And then you can subtract 2 points if you want to add on a certain amount of damage, being 1d4, or you can just leave it with a stacked plus 2 to all adversaries' damage rolls. Basically, you're making this a little bit more challenging without increasing the amount of adversaries there are and without lengthening that battle. So that way it's a bit more challenging. Not by much, but just a little bit. Now that we got through the adding and the subtracting of battle points, what we're really going to get into now is how do we build this list? Because now we get to spend those points. How do we spend them? What does that look like exactly? So when it comes to spending these points, you can spend 1 for each minion group equal to the size of the party. You can also spend 1 point for each social or support type adversaries. We can then spend 2 points for each horde, ranged, skulk, or standard type adversary that we choose, as well as spending 3 points for a leader adversary, spending 4 for a bruiser adversary, or spending 5 points for a solo type adversary. Now we can see how bringing 2 solo type adversaries is actually going to be a big point sink. Instead of it being just 5 points each, it's going to be more like 6 points each, to where you're spending 12 because of that subtraction that we have to do for taking 2 solo type adversaries, which means we only have 2 points left over, assuming that we have 4 PCs that we're working with. So in 14, 2 solos is going to give us 12 points right there. So now we can bring like maybe a social type adversary and a support type adversary, or perhaps we can grab a social and a minion group while we're at it. So you can see how you can kind of mix and match a lot of this stuff, and you can bring pretty much what you want, and you could really and truly negate this entire process if you really wanted to, but this is meant to bring that balanced sort of play. Okay, so you want to make sure that if you're new to this and you're new to building encounters, especially within Daggerheart, go with the equation. Ain't nothing wrong with that. If you're used to 1.5, it still works, okay? If you're used to the 1.5 way of building encounters, it still works. is not going to be that big of a deal. But I do like this because it gives you a little bit more freedom in that aspect to mix and match the way that you want to. I do, however, have a suggestion for you if you want to bring those power levels back into your encounter building, those easy, standard, challenging, and climactic power levels, so that way you know the kind of encounter you are going to be bringing to your table. I do have a very simple solution for this. So for an easy encounter, all you have to do is, instead of the 3 times the number of PCs plus 2, you just have to do 2 times the number of PCs plus 2, and that'll get you the battle points that you need to make it an easy encounter. And then obviously anything below that is going to be a very easy encounter. Now obviously for the standard encounter, just use the standard equation as is. That standard battle point number is going to be exactly what you need for a standard encounter. Challenging, however, just needs to be that +2 adjustment that you can already make where it already suggests that. Just do that and that's going to be your challenging encounter right there. You could probably go a little bit more than that, but I think the +2 is just fine. Now the climactic encounter. That power level needs to be up there just a little bit more. So all you have to do is make it a 4 times the number of PCs plus 2 instead of the 3 times the number of PCs plus 2. If you make it 4 times the number of PCs plus 2, that is going to be a good amount of battle points. That should equal out that climactic encounter just enough, not too much, but it's just enough to get past that challenging level into that climactic level that you're probably going to be looking for from time to time. But that's my suggestion for bringing those power levels back into your encounter, so you know with absolute certainty the power level that you are bringing with that encounter. Is it too much? Is it just enough? Or is it too easy? Now overall, I do like this new way of building encounters. It's going to take a second to switch gears and get used to this, but I do like this a lot, mainly because I'm going to know what my party point total is going to be at all times, right? If I see 4 players, I know it's going to be 14 points to work with. If the party changes, then I just redo the equation really fast, and that's going to take like all of 2 seconds. Let's say I add 1 person. That's going to be 3 times 5 all of a sudden, so that's going to give me 15 plus 2. I now have 17 points in total to work with. It's just going to increase what I can bring to the table now. Ain't nothing wrong with that. And especially after we go through some adds and subtractions, there we go. We've all of a sudden just got a few more points here or there, or maybe we lost a few points because we want to make it a little bit shorter, a little bit quicker. We can totally do that. It gives you so much more customization capability, and it's going to maintain that balance that you're looking for. So don't stray too far from this unless you're really and truly a practiced hand at this, or if the players just completely negated all common sense and they just went rip-roaring in and just called everybody down, then, bring the pain. But outside of that, that's not a bad way to build encounters. So I do like that a lot, and I will be using this when I start getting back into the adversary encounter builds. I wanted to wait until the official rules were out and I actually got used to this. Now that I'm going to be getting back into those adversary encounter builds. So that way you can see how to build encounters and what you can bring and how to go about that, especially when you want to bring some really dynamic encounters, not just the same old, a bunch of standards are being thrown at them, something to that effect. But how you can build these to incorporate a leader, to incorporate a bruiser, and what the tactics can be when it comes to some of those types of adversaries. So we're going to get right back into that. And if you are new to the channel, we are a group of friends and military members that absolutely love tabletop RPGs. And regardless of what tabletop system you enjoy, we want to make sure you have enough content to have an epic game night every night. So if you are into Daggerheart, Lancer, DC-20, D&D, World of Darkness, Genesis, stick with us and consider subscribing and hitting that bell notification so you don't miss a single one of these videos. So until the next one, keep that shield wall strong.